Lane, do you know what day it is?
Oh my god. I think it might be Conversation with a Wounded Healer's birthday.
Woo! I didn't wanna squeak into the microphone. And I don't even remember exactly what day this comes out, but this is the birthday episode. So,
Yes.
we are very excited because as of, I guess, March 5th, 2026, it's been 9 years since I've been doing this podcast. That's
Wow.
almost a decade. That's a lot of time, and I was thinking as I was sort of preparing for, what we were gonna say on this podcast and just thinking about all the stuff that's changed in almost 10 years, and I really like, when I look back, I've said this a couple times with different guests, but when I look back over the years, this podcast has really been like almost like a diary for me, sort of,
Mm.
to back in my healing journey, and I'm sure that if you just, like, gave me a random episode, I would be able to either hear it in my voice or hear what I was talking about and tell you, like, exactly what point in my journey I was, and I really appreciate that people are going on the ride with me.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's also like a testament to the whole foundation of the podcast. Like to me, I'm thinking of like the arc of the wounded healer and how there is like such a natural ebb and flow to that. And so it makes
Yeah.
sense that you would have grown and changed a lot over the last 9 years. And it's so special and cool that it's been documented
Yeah.
in the way that it has been. Yeah.
I know, it's so wild. Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to do today was, you and I have done a lot of hard work in trying to figure out what the hell it is that I do, because it's always made sense to me inside that all of these seemingly disparate things that I do, make sense, but we and not gonna lie, with the help of ChatGPT, because it's
Mm.
a very organizing force, I gotta tell you, sort of came up with a way to frame what it is I'm doing, and this is going to be the subject of my book that I am working on with NASW Press. So, what I am thinking about at all times now in terms of my work is sort of orienting to healing on 3 different levels: the individual level, the organizational level, which is also a relational level, and then the systemic level. So, individual obviously is a lot of, what we've already been doing. Organizational, a lot of that too is also going to happen on Group Practice Revolution. So, if you haven't listened to Group Practice Revolution yet, even if you're not a group practice owner, there's probably interesting stuff over there for you. Um, but like, basically thinking about how our organizations really, like, we should be better. We should really be better if we're therapists working together. And then the systemic level, right? How do we create these large scale changes in the world? And going right back to the individual, like, I think that these 3 levels are constantly connected and intersecting and intertwining, and so I want to try to at least, like, clue people in for particular episodes, like, this one's really gonna dig into the individual level, this one's really gonna be about the systemic lens, and this one's gonna be more organizational, just to kind of, like, help you orient to where my brain is orienting.
Mm. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense because you do work on so many different levels with your business, Head Heart Business Therapy. I think it makes sense to add a little bit more context for the listeners. Yeah, in all of your episodes.
Yeah. So I guess, like, to just, like, break it down a little bit more. So for the individual level, it's so funny because everything that's been happening in the world right now is so bonkers, and I see a lot of people reaching out and going like, how do I be okay during this time? Like, what can I do outside of myself? And all I keep thinking is like, this is the moment that we have to do our inner work, because especially as therapists, if we're going to show up for our clients right now, we have to have some sort of connection with ourselves and like what we're doing in the world. So, no matter what I'm doing, like, everything for me comes back to this. Also, like, working with I've a very small clinical caseload still, consulting clients, supervising authentic leaders group also. So those are some, like, ways that I'm trying to, I guess, I wanted to say aliven individual work, but I don't know, focus on.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, sure, sure. And then for the organizational level, so this is a thing that really came up for me as a group practice owner, and truthfully, I think being a group practice owner forced me into a position to have to practice what I preach, and I started really, like, kinda looking around me and thinking, like, there aren't a lot of healthy organizations in our field, and that
Mm,
makes me really sad. So, when I think about, organizational healing, I think about it as relationships with the people that we are working with in our organization. So, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your coworkers, your relationship with your subordinates if you're the boss, and really, like, inviting us to hold ourselves accountable to clear
mm,
communication, like our own part of creating psychological safety, trust, and all that sort of stuff. And of course, the biggest place I think I do this work is Authentic Leaders Group, where we dig into organizational dynamics. And I'm super excited. As we record this, I haven't done it yet, but I'm about to work with an organization. They're actually ENTs. I went to college with this guy to undergrad, and then he became an ENT. I was a voice major in undergrad, and he was like,
mhm,
"Oh, we need help, like, working with patients that are resistant to change." And so I get to, like, go into their retreat and, like, help them work together as an organization. Because it's funny, he was focused on the patients when he initially reached out, and then I talked to his boss, and she's like, "Oh, no, no,
mm.
no, no, no. We need to do this with each other." So
Yeah.
that's the other type of thing that makes me really excited is, like, being able to go into workplaces and, like, be alive with whatever's coming up at any given time.
Yeah, I'm also curious to hear you talk about, like, the systemic level. I definitely have a lot of questions, but maybe you should lay out all 3 before I start
Okay. Okay.
asking. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've said this a million times on the podcast before, but I don't know if I've sort of coalesced it in one place. Therapists are working in a world that is not the world that we were trained for, right? So you if you are, going to grad school right now, you're probably learning a lot of CBT, you're probably kind of situated within this model that assumes a certain level of health within the therapist and unhealth within the patient or client. And I think now it's actually we're all kind of unwell. I mean, I don't know what y'all are seeing on the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the TikToks out there, but therapists seem to be struggling right now. And so the systemic lens that I'm trying to take is thinking about how, as a field, do we rise to meet these new challenges rather than just keep doing what we're doing? And one of the examples of this is this idea that therapy is political, right? So, first of all, we're still not in agreement on that, and there's an episode
Mm,
coming up later this month that will kind of dive into the debate around whether therapy is political or not. And then, secondly, even if you and I both agree that therapy is political, what does that mean in practice?
mm,
And it's funny because I wrote down that we need to create some standards around this. It's not about standards, it's about, like, really having discernment, which then goes back to doing your individual work, right? Because if you
right.
haven't done individual work around ableism or racism or all of the other isms that are, like, really upholding these systems of oppression, then you're not going to be able to sit with a client with these things. So there has to be some sort of agreement around this, and I have a couple presentations coming up. Maybe we'll post them in the show notes, where I'm trying to address, like, all of these different levels too. So you can also look at my website. All of the stuff is there. And like I said before, this is going to be part of my book with NASW. And what I want to take a look at is our academic training systems, our professional
Mhm.
licensing boards, right? Professional membership organizations, all that sort of stuff is what I think systemically needs to evolve in order for therapists to really meet this moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and, like, just to speak to that point a little bit more, I agree that there needs to be consensus on where the field is right now and, like, that question of is social work inherently political or not, and
Right.
questions of that sort, yes, and also, I think there needs to be consensus on some of those topics within the field in order for there to be a clearer path forward, I think, like, as a whole. So,
Right, right.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I was wondering really quick if you would be able to define for the audience what is head heart business therapy and what is that philosophy or foundation behind your business. You described it to me recently and it
And now you're testing me as if I can say
and
the
now
thing
I'm
that I
testing
said
you.
before.
Pop quiz.
You remember what I said? Because I know that's
Well,
the problem. I do very terrible elevator pitches,
oh.
so I can't remember what I said. Do you remember what I said? Can you give me a hint?
Well, yeah, I can give you a little bit of a hint, and it is, like, it's laid out, on your website, but basically I love this. We were
Right?
talking about it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, of course I know it is what you do. I've been working with you for several years,"
Yeah.
but we'd recently met, and in person, we did, like, a pretty long retreat, and you had described for me pretty succinctly kind of what the mission behind Head Heart Business Therapy was, and kind of I wasn't sure if, like, business therapy had
Mhm.
been like, whose idea was that? I didn't know if
Coined.
it was yours, if it was a thing, yeah, who had coined it. So,
Mhm.
you had described to me that the business therapy of it all was basically learning how to apply and integrate the things that make therapists great at their
Right.
jobs clinically in the therapy room with their clients, um, it's practicing integrating those same
Right.
skills actually in practice and,
Right.
applying it to themselves. So and
Right.
I think for me that really does apply to the 3 levels of work you do, individual, organizational, and systemic. I think that's kind of like the cornerstone of all of this, that I think is really important for listeners to understand kind of the big picture
Yeah.
of all of those things that you're doing,
See,
yeah.
this is why you make the big bucks and I keep you around because yeah, I guess yeah, and now that you say that, this is something that I've sort of been making more clear to myself is a lot of my frustration with our field is that I see us having these tools and the fact that we are not practicing them with each other and within our organizations and to create systems that are going to better serve us and our clients is really sad to me. And so I think about the work that I do as being an invitation to aligning with our values, right? Being really in integrity with who we are. And this is something that practice ownership really forced me to do in a really painful way. And so I'm grateful for that. And also, like, want to use that experience to support others with that alignment as well. Because, like,
Mm.
baby, you got all the stuff you need. You just got to apply it. You just got to do it. And sometimes there's a lot of shame and shit that we got to sort through before we can get there. But again, that's what the individual work is for.
Yeah, yeah, and to me, it also seems related to the idea of walking the walk
Yeah.
instead of just talking the talk,
Yep.
and I think that's really integral to the work that you're doing and kind of the bottom line,
Yeah.
of that kind of individual level work that you engage in, with practice owners and clinicians, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'll just say for anyone listening, you and I have been working together for I don't even know how many years now. And so this is like the first time that listeners are really hearing you right now that you've
Mm,
started on the
mhm, mhm.
podcast. But you have such a steady presence and you have been such a partner with me as
Mm,
I've really created this next chapter of my life after, you started with me at Head Heart Therapy and now shifting into Head Heart Business Therapy. And I've watched you grow as a businesswoman and
mm.
like really ground yourself and like, okay, here's how I can really help practice owners and, here's what I can offer. You're a thought partner. I remember saying to you at one point, I could tell that you were treating me like I was somehow above you, and I was like, "No, no, no,
Yeah.
girl, we are at the same level." And ever since you got that invitation, you were like, "Oh, okay, well, here's what I fucking think." And I love that. It's been
Oh
so
my god.
necessary for me. So I wanna say that
Mm.
publicly so that everybody
Oh.
knows how amazing and awesome and wonderful you are, even though they have no idea you've existed until recently.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot, and I too distinctly remember that moment
Mhm.
when I think you were like, "Just so you know, like, I view us as equals." And I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, Is she serious? Is she pulling my leg?" Like, I was like, oh my god." And then that
Yeah.
changed the way that, like, I do work with you and with every client, that I have acquired since. So thank you for
Mhm.
that. It was definitely very organizing for me professionally. So,
Oh,
yeah.
good. And just to say too, any right use of power people who are listening saying like, "But you're not equals, age, and you've hired her and did it." Yes, we have also talked about the power differential, but when it comes to how I like to share information, how I like to work together, I have always thought of you as well, I think what I said was we're intellectual equals.
Yes, that's what
Um
you said.
More specifically because yeah, I
Mhm.
wanted you to know that I knew how smart you were and that I needed that big, giant, beautiful brain to help in the work that we do.
Yes. Well, I
Yeah.
love that. I'm so glad I've been here through the evolution of your business and, yeah, your professional path. It's been really cool to bear witness to and, yeah, be a part of. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Lane. Anything
Mhm.
else you think we need to say before we close? I have one more tiny thing, but
Hmm. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I don't think I have anything else lingering right for now.
I mean, I guess this is the pitch. So if you have listened thus far and you're like, how do I work with Sarah? Go to my website is the easiest thing. We haven't exactly organized it around this individual, organizational, and systemic just yet. We're trying to figure out like crazy ways that we can use navigation to like make it look super fucking cool. So we haven't gotten there yet, but essentially like there's a lot of stuff on my website to engage, but easiest thing to do is just send me a message to the contact form and be like, "Yo, this is what I'm thinking." I'm super good when people just like throw me some like word vomit and I'm like, "Oh, here's what I hear in there. Is this what you want?" And then we can do some cool shit together.
Yeah, right on. Yes, and everyone, Sarah is like she would be a real asset if you're having any issues in your practice, whether it's solo practice, group practice, you name it.
Thank you,
She's
dear.
got you covered. Yes, no, but seriously. Yes.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, thank you for being here for our little birthday episode update of all things podcasting and head heart business therapy. And we'll see you next time.
Woohoo, bye.